What's happening, YouTube? Today I'm at the OSS store and it's Thursday, so that means we got Tech Thursday. And today, earlier this week, I had a video where I showed you guys how to sprocket stall. So I know a lot of you guys are either damaging your chain, your sprocket, or everything on your bike. So I'm gonna give you guys a little briefing on the difference between plastic and aluminum pegs, sprocket guards, no sprocket guards, and different chains that you can use when you're gonna be doing more bashing tricks. All right, so here we go. First off, we have a Merit chromoly peg that's about 4 inches. Then we got the Stranger pegs that have both the aluminum inner sleeve and the plastic outer sleeve. We got a Shadow Supreme chain, a Primo 510 chain, and then a Colt 410 chain. Lastly, we have a Shadow spline drive sprocket, a Colony Rainbow traditional 25-tooth sprocket, and then the Primo Sprocket with a guard. And it just so happens that we have Nate Richter here.
Hey, look at all these bikes.
Look at all these bikes we're building.
Come buy some shit, buy some.
Yeah, come buy some bikes. But more importantly, look at his bike. So he's got plastic pegs, he's got a half-link chain, and a bash guard. You be bashing, huh, Nate?
I'll be bashing and smashing.
There you go. And he's got 4 pegs. So let me go into the details here. Number 1, a chromoly peg. So this is your traditional metal peg. And it's a Merit, I think it's 4 and about maybe a quarter, or if not 4 inches flat. So this is a shorter peg. The reason that people like chromoly pegs is because they actually grind. A lot of people really like the feeling of metal pegs grinding on a rail, or just the way that they grind on a ledge. When you're actually using a plastic peg, or as G-Sport call them, the plegs, they're actually sliding on the surface. They're not really damaging it, and it really just eats away at the peg. Most plastic pegs come with an aluminum inner sleeve. So this is similar to the chromoly, and back in the day a lot of people actually grinded using aluminum pegs. The reason people don't like grinding with aluminum pegs is because they dent really easily, and they don't grind that well on a lot of different surfaces, especially aluminum on aluminum. So if you find an aluminum rail and you try and slide it with one of these bad boys, you're probably not going to go anywhere. When you have a plastic one, they're going to actually slide on the aluminum rail. And if you try a straight chromoly one, hardened metal, it'll actually dent the aluminum, and you're definitely going to lock and flip over the bars. So you don't want to grind with that. Usually I recommend someone that really likes grinding like all kinds of ledges, a plastic peg. They're pretty affordable. They usually run between 15 to 20 bucks, and they come with a plastic sleeve, and some of them even come with an extra sleeve. Stranger and the Primo ones both come with an extra sleeve, so that's always cool to have some in your backpack. And the only real downside is that if you're trying to do stalls, plastic again slides around a lot. So if you're trying to stall a quarter pipe or a ledge or something, you'll notice that they're always kind of moving unless you're very precise. Length. So a lot of people really like the 4.5 inch pegs, and the reason for that is that they like doing cricket grinds. The longer the peg, the more area you have to land on, and when you're doing cricket grinds, that's pretty good because sometimes it's going to slip off, and the shorter peg will obviously slip off a lot sooner. That basically covers a rundown on pegs. One thing I do recommend, try and avoid pegs that have like a hole down here where you can put an anti-roll pin, and the reason for that is that it cracks them. If you see a peg that has any kind of crack marks at the base, that usually means that peg's about to explode, so run away from that. All right, so next up we have a little bit of a chain talk and chain with a sprocket. This is the Shadow Supreme chain. So it's really thick, it's a half-link chain, and it's like basically the pins are really hardened and they're not gonna pop off. So if you notice here on the more affordable like 410 chain, the pins are smooth and they actually have no kind of like riveting to them, and this chain is about $9. Obviously, the Supreme chain is a lot more expensive, but because you're getting your bang for your buck. The reason is that the actual chain links are hardened steel. They're actually stamped with the Shadow logo, and they have a better design, and they're a lot thicker. So they're gonna put up to a lot more abuse than these like really thin 410 chains. Another thing is that the half-link chain is stronger, and it allows for a bigger area of adjustment when you're adjusting your sprocket. Then you have the in-between chain. This is the 510 chain by Primo, and this one actually comes with 1 half-link. So at the very end of the chain, they have 1 half-link. So that means that you have the full body links and then 1 half-link for adjustment, so you can get really precise on the gap that you have on your back end. Sprockets. So we have one with a guard, one without a guard, and one that's spline drive. So the quick differences. So this is your traditional sprocket. It's a Colony Chris Courtney signature model, and it's got the cool rainbow paint job, aka jet fuel, I guess. And this is a 25 2-sprocket. It's CNC'd, and it's got a real cool pattern. And this is basically your more traditional sprocket nowadays. This sprocket coupled with like a 510 chain is really good if you're not going to really sprocket grind, or if you don't even grind all together, because you're not going to really hit your chain very often. When you're doing grinds like crooked grinds or even ice pick grinds, sometimes you come off the edge and you'll land right on your sprocket and your chain. And obviously having a thinner sprocket and a weaker chain, it could break. So if you're more of a park rider or a trail rider, you can get away with riding a traditional sprocket with like a 510 or 410 chain. Alright, so this shadow sprocket is a lot thicker, so it's going to be able to put up to a lot more abuse, and it has spline drive. So the difference is, if you look on the inside of this sprocket, it's smooth. So that means that you're just going to put the adapter in here and you can put it on any kind of spindle that's either 19, 22, or 24. Again, this sprocket is specific to a profile, demolition, or shadow 19mm 48 spline spindle. The cool thing about this is you can see there are no sprocket bolts. And the reason for that is that the spline is actually the driving factor for the sprocket. With these type of sprockets, you have a hole, and that's where the sprocket bolt goes. And as you can see, this has 2 holes, so you can adjust both sides that you grind on. And the cool thing about the spline drive is that it's going to allow you a stronger torque. Because there are no sprocket bolts, it has 48 points of engagement, and this in theory only has 1 point of engagement, so that's where all your force is going, and on the spline it kind of disperses it evenly. Alright, last but not least, we have the Primo solid sprocket. So this obviously is a bigger, heavier piece of metal as opposed to like the more traditional one, but it's a full guard sprocket, and the cool thing with that is, like I said, it has 2 bolt holes, so you can either grind and bash on one side, then flip it over and grind and bash on the other. Also, I've seen a lot of people that actually get these and put them on backwards, so they do look pretty cool on your cranks backwards. That means that the guard is on the inside and you can still see the exposed chainring on the outside. Now, when you're riding a guard sprocket, your chain really doesn't have to be all that crazy because it's going to be protected. So I recommend either the 410 or the 510. Riding a bash guard with like a Supreme chain or the Shadow Analog V2 chain, I feel is a little bit of overkill because you're already adding a lot of weight by having a heavier sprocket. And as you can see, the Supreme chain is going to be a lot heavier than either the 510 or the 410, and even the V2 Shadow Analog chain. And why go overboard and ride a guard with like a crazy chain when you can just keep it pretty light? Again, all these chains and all these sprockets are interchangeable, but I just, as advice, don't really recommend the overkill. I ride the V2 Shadow Conspiracy Interlock chain and just the Magnum sprocket, and I haven't broken it once, and I've been sprocket grinding and bashing quite a bit. Alright, so real quickly, just for a rundown, we have 2 25 tooth sprockets, one is spline drive and one is traditional. We have a 25 tooth guard sprocket. When you're talking about sprocket sizes, you have 25, and then let me show you guys a quick 28. So this is a 28 of the Chris Courtney sprocket. As you can see, it's a lot bigger. Usually when you're riding a 25 tooth sprocket, you want a 9 tooth driver in the rear. But if you want to go faster, people ride a 28 tooth in the front with a 9 in the rear. And that allows you a lot more crank power and speed. The only thing is that when you're going uphill, you're going to feel it a lot more. Then there's other size sprockets like a 24, a 27, a 29, a 30. And those sprockets are just different sizes for, if you're racing or you're doing different things like that and you want to get even more speed or more torque, then you can change it up. Or if you get an in-between size, so like if you have a 25 tooth and you want a 26 or a 24, that's for a sprocket adjustment so that your chain and your back end is a little closer to the dropouts. And that should basically wrap it up on the chain, sprocket, and peg talk. Like always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I think I did a decent job explaining the differences, but there might be something I left out because obviously I try to do these in one take or one sitting, and every once in a while something will slip my mind, so just remind me in the comments. But as always, thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and tune in for tomorrow's video where I'm riding with the OSS boys. So catch you guys later. Peace.
Isn't the king of the jibaholic movement. What up, big dog? Yeah, right?
Raul. Big dog, chilling.
Dude, I was gonna get on the freeway over here and I saw all of them. I was like, I'm just gonna go ride around for a little bit. You got that reflective seat so they see you in traffic or what? Nah? Within seconds of getting here, security's on its way. Made it. to 15. And that traffic is gonna suck dick. So do you.